right, sweet. Flatline MMA podcast episode number 50. Shout out to the boys. Thank you to everyone who supported us so far. We're only getting bigger. We're only getting better. Click that subscribe button. The boys are rolling here. Let's talk some fights. UFC Fight Island 4 last weekend, headlined by Holly Holm taking on Irene Aldana. Some good fights on this card, man. I think a lot of people didn't really have too many expectations with this card. Is Holly Holm the most exciting fighter on the roster in her past fights? People would say no. But I think overall, man, this card, did pretty good. I think the prelim card, we had, some exciting fights, man, some up-and-comers. And then we really get to the main card, and I thought that's kind of where it really shines. We had, some good fights. Daquan Townsend taking on, Dusko Todorovic. I don't even know how to say his last name. Good fight. Kyler Phillips taking on Cameron Else. Kyler Phillips getting it done. Second round TKO. Great fight there. And then we had, Jermaine Durandamy taking on Julieta Pena, which definitely had a lot of hype behind there. GDR obviously, coming off her loss of Amanda Nunes, which, she really didn't get to show off too much of a ground game there because Nunes was really just on top, kind of imposing her will on her. But Durandamy, who's known to be, this great striker, right, gets the submission victory in the third, which I think everyone was shocked. And she put Pena out cold, which I thought was badass. Like, that was like the picture afterwards where like Pena's on the ground and GDR is just like hovering over. Like, that was sick. And obviously she showed that she's got some other tools in her tool belt. So I don't know, what did you think about the submission victory? And obviously, were you surprised by it?
Yeah, I was definitely surprised by that finish because, watching the first round, it looked like, Durandamy was so much bigger than Pena, but her striking was so much better. She had a lot better movement. Pena, I think she had a couple takedown attempts up against the cage towards the end of the first round and was kind of unsuccessful. So I kind of thought the whole fight was going to go that way. Durandamy was going to control the fight on the feet. Going to go to a decision, but Pena got the takedown in the second round, kind of controlled that, had a submission attempt of her own, which was pretty close. And then, in the third, Pena goes for a takedown and gets choked out. I mean, I thought she was just going to get the takedown. It was going to be a repeat around two, but Durandamy had a different plan and put her out cold.
Yeah, wild sequence. And just, obviously those submissions where you go all cold, you got to give it to the person getting submitted as well. Like, the fact that you don't tap at that, I mean, it's such a badass moment. Obviously, you're getting a loss, but still, overall, I thought that was a great fight. Obviously, Durandamy showed off some other tools that she had. And I think people really do forget, like, how good Durandamy is. I mean, you got to think she, her first loss in the UFC was to the one and only Amanda Nunes. And then she goes on an absolute tear, 5 fight win streak. And then, who does she run into again? Amanda Nunes. So think about that right now. Her only 2 losses in the UFC are against the bantamweight GOAT. And the rest of her fights have just been dominant. She really has shown that she's the superior striker in most of her fights. I mean, we remember the fight where she put Aspen Ladd out in the first friggin' 16 seconds. She's overpowered everyone she's fought other than Amanda Nunes. And even in that fight, she showed some competitiveness that not everyone has shown Nunes. So I think people do forget how dangerous she is in this division and what she can do. So curious to see what happens next. I do have an idea for her next, but we'll bring that up in a second. Coming to the co-main event, we had a heavyweight clash. We had Yorgan De Castro, a New England boy, taking on Carlos Felipe. I think we didn't expect this one to go to the judges, to be completely honest. I mean, you got 2 hard-hitting heavyweights who, are known for knockouts. Yorgan De Castro has had some of the sickest knockouts, walk-off Mark Hunt-like KOs. So I was not expecting this to go to the judges. Carlos Felipe getting it done via decision. Kev, do you agree with the decision here?
Yeah, I did. Even though it was a pretty entertaining fight, they were both trading pretty good. I think Philippe like almost doubled the amount of strikes that Jorgen threw the entire fight. So
Mm-hmm.
he's just a more active fighter. He got the better of a lot of exchanges too. He had Jorgen in some trouble. One thing that I did like about this fight is that the ref didn't allow them to really not work on the cage, but he didn't allow them to rest. Whenever they'd clinch up and they'd be sitting on the cage for a little bit, he'd break them back up. And I think that's what kept the fight pretty exciting because
Mm-hmm.
their best work was in the middle of the ring. And then once they went over to the cage, it was more like a rest. So I agree with the decision. I like the way that the ref um, broke the fight up when there was less action. And yeah, I mean, good fight overall. Good for both guys. It was a good showcase of both of their skills. But I think Philippe was just more active. I think that landing percentage was about the same,
Mm-hmm.
but Philippe was landing more punches, so you got to give him the decision.
Yeah, good. Just to kind of go off your point about, the ref and really kind of breaking up the fight like that. I think that's how more fights need to be like. You know what I mean? Um, and I agree. I think that's something that needs to be taken from that fight because I thought it was done pretty well. So one thing I was disappointed with, I just felt that Jorgen definitely couldn't pull the trigger like he normally does. And he wanted that bomb. I don't know whether he just didn't have the right opportunity. A little gun shy, but overall, still a great fight. Thought it was definitely a good co-main for this card. And it's always exciting. I don't care what heavyweight is in the ring. It's always exciting seeing a heavyweight fight. You know,
Yeah.
so that was a good one. And then let's get to the main event here. We had a women's bantamweight bout. We had Holly Holm taking on Irene Aldana. I know both of our predictions were Aldana. We were so wrong. Holly Holm proved why she's still one of the best women on planet Earth. Just absolutely dominating Aldana all 5 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
It was a 50-45. Aldana couldn't do anything. Holly Holm literally was landing shots, clinch work. Everything was just on point, kind of vintage, minus a finish. It was kind of a vintage Holly Holm performance. She looked good, man. She looked, like the Holly Holm of old. So, listen, are we her biggest fans? Can't say that, but I don't know. What did you think about the Holly Holm performance on Saturday night?
Yeah, it's a complete change from her past couple fights. Just the way she approached it. She looked, pretty motivated, pretty hyped up. Her conditioning was great. She super active every single round. Um, I think the game plan was really good too. She had a lot of moving side to side, stayed out of range for Aldana, and pretty much forced Aldana to chase her the entire fight. And when Aldana would throw one, Holly would come back with 3 or 4. She was throwing combinations, um, mixed it up really well too. That had some nice kicks. Yeah, she landed a pretty good head kick in one of the later rounds. Um, and scored 2 takedowns too, which is pretty surprising. Which you,
Yep.
you don't see Holly do a whole lot of. And they said during the fight that Aldana has had like the best or like the second best takedown defense in that division, in the female division. So to get two takedowns on her is pretty impressive. So yeah, well, Holly dominated that whole fight. I don't, she had the takedowns, she had the better striking, and she took less damage.
Yeah, overall, just a flawless performance by Holly. Again, like I said before, proving why she's still one of the best, in the world here. And, after a performance like that, obviously Holly Holm's the vintage, like, hey, she gets a win and she's going to get a title shot kind of fighter. You know what I mean? Kind of like a Jose
Mm-hmm.
Aldo type. Which brings us to kind of what's next for her, because I feel like the stars did kind of align on Saturday night where, hey, why don't we run back, Jermaine Durandamy, Holly Holm for the #1 contender, right? Obviously, it'll be a rematch. Holly Holm took on Durandamy back at UFC 208. for, I think everyone remembers, the women's featherweight championship. And then I think the whole controversy where like Durandamy didn't want to fight Cyborg and then they stripped her, like all that happened. So I don't know. I think that would be maybe a fun one to kind of run back. Durandamy won that by decision, but I mean, these two, you got two still of the best women on earth. So I would love to see them kind of run that one back. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, with the way they both performed the other night, I would love to see that fight, especially with how aggressive Holly was, how much more well-rounded um Durandamy came in with their takedown defense with submissions. I think it'd be a pretty interesting fight if they both came in the exact same way.
Yeah, they're both now back in, the win column here. Holly Holm, 2-fight win streak for the first time since she came into the UFC. And then, we got Jermaine Durandamy finally back on track after that loss to Amanda Nunes. So I think like I said, stars do align for that fight to happen, I guess, for the number one contender spot. So curious to see which, everyone on Twitter, when I asked the question, everyone was going nuts saying this is the perfect fight to make. So I'm thinking that's the fight to make. So overall, UFC Fight Island 4, I thought was a success. A lot of people were kind of ragdolling it. I think us included. I think we even said it was going to be pretty boring, but sometimes those cards come out of nowhere and you just they deliver. So thank you, Dana White, for another awesome fight night card, which brings us to this weekend. This is kind of the polar opposite in terms of main event wise. We have an absolute banger of a main event, UFC Fight Island 5, this Saturday night. We have two of the best bantamweights on earth, Marlon Magic Moraes taking on Corey Sandhagen. Both of these guys obviously coming off of kind of different paths here. You got, Marlon Moraes, who, had a title shot, right? Took on Cejudo, had an awesome first round against Henry Cejudo. Think maybe, gassed out a little bit. And Cejudo took advantage of that and beating him by TKO. But then he kind of bounced back and he had a really hard fought, fight versus Jose Aldo, an absolute legend. Pretty controversial. He won the split when I think no one really gave it to him, but overall still a win on, his record. And then evidently, that led to kind of, Jose Aldo getting title shots, like all this stuff, you know what I mean? And it kind of put the MMA world on fire there because I don't think anyone thought he won the fight. So, and then we got Corey Sandhagen, who, I mean, this kid was on, let's see, just in the UFC 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-fight win streak, runs into Aljamain Sterling back in June and lost, by a quick rear naked choke. Definitely very disappointing performance by him there. But obviously going up against a guy like Aljo, who's so good, who's really the next in line for a title shot, there's no harm or foul there. But which makes this such an intriguing fight because you kind of got like two guys with, two different styles. You got Moraes, who's just he's going to come at you. You know what I mean? That first round against Henry where he was just chopping at the legs, just going crazy, was a work of art. And then you see a guy like Sandhagen who, he's mostly, he is a submission guy and he's more, I think reserved. He likes to kind of time you out in the first round. He's got a couple of decision wins on his victory, but mostly TKOs, submissions. So he's very well-rounded fighter. So curious to think, what do you think about this main event? Because this is this definitely will shake up the bantamweight rankings here.
Yeah, it's a tough one to choose. I've been thinking a lot about it. You got Moraes, his striking is incredible. Like you said, like what he did to Cejudo those first 2 rounds. Not many fighters are going to make it through what he put Cejudo through. But that being said, he has a hard time pacing himself.
Yep.
He's so good. He's so powerful. But, after the first round and a half, 2 rounds, I think that becomes Sandhagen's fight from that point. And I think Sandhagen has the ability to weather the storm early, and still be in good shape round 3 through
Yeah.
5. So, we've seen Sandhagen. He's been put into a ton of weird positions. He's been rocked. He's been, I forget who he fought. He almost had his arm broken. It was like super hyper extended, and he fought that for like 2 minutes straight. He's just a tough guy to put away.
Yep.
So I think that's really going to help him. And then 3 through 5, I think he's going to put in a lot of work and get the win.
Yeah, obviously I'd love to see Sandhagen, come out the win here. Moraes had his shot, so I kind of want to see, new blood come in there. But, I look at Moraes and like you said, how explosive this kid is. I mean, he went on this run where it was what he did to Aljamain Sterling, where he just flatlined him with that knee was ridiculous. Then he again, quick work at Jimmy Rivera, scary. And then he comes and he submits Rafael Sunsao, which Sunsao is such a durable guy, and to put him away like that is crazy. And then he, ultimately got his title shot. But I will agree with you. I think he kind of, tends to, blow his load in the first and second, right? So I think that's where Sandhagen can come in, really do some damage. Like you said, Sandhagen, really durable guy. So if he can weather that storm, we're going to see a new freaking contender in this bantamweight division. But a lot of people are excited about this fight. This is going to answer a lot of questions. Obviously, I mean, you take a look at, the rankings here. We got Sandhagen at 4. Moraes is the number 1, contender hypothetically in the rankings. But I mean, this is basically going to put, obviously Aljo is really the number 1 contender. I know that fight's not officially booked yet, but Sandhagen gets this win. He's, a top 3 fighter in the world, which is crazy. So I think it's going to shake a lot of things up, but I am going to pick Sandhagen. I think he's going to win via decision, to be honest. I think Moraes is going to gas out. I think he's going to that first round is going to be hell for Sandhagen. I really believe that. I think he's going to get knocked down. I think he's going to weather it, but I ultimately think that he's going to win a decision here. So, UFC Fight Island 5. Ultimately, I think it's going to be a really good card. We got some big names on here. We got Edson Barbosa with a featherweight bout. Ben Rothwell's on here. We got some, newcomers like Tom Espinelli. Let's take a look at the prelim card. Impa Kesenage, he was been pretty impressive in his first 2 fights. Tracy Cortez. So we got a lot of up and comers on here. Some big names, obviously, in the co-main and the main event. So UFC Fight Island 5 should be a fun one this Saturday night, ESPN Plus. Go watch that shit. Couple things just wanted to bring up real quick. The Izzy John Jones beef. They've been coming at each other all week. Twitter posting pictures of Jones getting arrested. Jones been posting pictures of Izzy getting knocked out, coming at each other's families. It's been entertaining. Is that a fight that you want to see? And do you think that the UFC is just going to say, screw this, let's make this fight next, because there is so much bad blood here? And it's like, we've seen some trash talk before. Obviously, we've seen Conor Khabib. They're taking it to a new level where they're like, it's wild. And I want to see this fight now. I want to see it, and it's intrigued me. Has it done the same for you?
Yeah. No, it's definitely a fight I want to see. It's just kind of weird timing for the two of them to be, so involved in each other's business, with Jones vacating his title at light heavy, with plans to go to heavy. Mm-hmm. And, Izzy defends his title, and he plans at staying at the weight class he's at. That there's really no path for them at the moment right now. There's really no path for them to meet. I think ideally, you'd see Izzy, maybe defend his belt 1 or 2 more times, and then come up and go for like a double champ type thing, where you get the 2 unbeaten fighters that don't like each other, that have, really exciting styles, good backstory to the whole fight. You get 2 champs coming together. Now that Jones vacated the belt, I mean, it's still a fun fight, but I think it's a missed opportunity to sell it that much more.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I definitely want to see that fight. And I think they should make that fight sooner than later, to be honest, because you don't know what's going to happen with Jones up at heavyweight. You know, can you imagine like he goes up to heavyweight, fights Ngannou or Stipe or any dangerous heavyweight and loses. Now he has to come back into that weight class and kind of redeem himself. And, you know, the more time that goes on with that, you know, Izzy's going to be off doing his own thing.
Yeah.
And then it kind of loses, I think, a little bit of marketability. But yeah, no, I mean, it's been fun to watch. It's definitely a fight that should be made, probably will be made, but I just don't know when it's gonna happen.
Yeah. No, you're right. The timing is so weird, especially with, you know, Adesanya just winning, defending his belt, calling out Cannonier. So it's like now Cannonier really actually does deserve that shot if he gets past Whitaker. And Jones, right? We want to see Jones with at one fight at heavyweight, you know, and it's just the fact of like, where would they fight? Like, is he going to jump up 2 weight classes and fight Jones at heavyweight? Like, I don't know if that's like a thing, but Jones just gave up his belt at light heavyweight. So like, why do that? So you're right. The timing's weird and the storyline's kind of weird. And it's like, I want to see Izzy defend his belt a couple more times. I do want to see Jones versus Ngannou. I want to see Jones versus Stipe. Like, that's what I want to see. So you're right. They should make it soon, but it's just a matter of how soon. You know what I mean? You know, they're both relatively still young. You know what I mean? People don't realize that John Jones is a year older than Izzy. It's like kind of wild. Izzy is 31 years old. Jones is 32. So it's like these guys are still in the prime of their careers. So I think we're going to see that fight, you know, within the next couple of years here. Let Izzy build his legacy. Let Jones build his legacy at heavyweight if he does, if he gets past the monsters there. But the beef has been real. It's been going on every day. From morning to nighttime, they have been talking shit, and it's awesome. And then obviously, speaking of shit talking, we had, you know, Conor McGregor, you know, call out Dustin Poirier for an exhibition match without the UFC involved. And I think that got Dana White even more pissed than he already is at Conor. So then Dana White comes out saying, we just offered Dustin the Conor fight. We're waiting to hear from Conor. Do you think smoke and mirrors, or do you think there's actually a contract out right now for Dustin Poirier versus Conor McGregor in a UFC fight?
No, I don't think there's a contract.
Yeah.
For that. I think Conor likes having a lot of options. He likes having the possibility of a lot of different opponents, and he'll put things out there just to say them, to get people talking, to bring, you know, certain things to life. I think that's kind of the way that, you know, the Floyd Mayweather fight happened. You know, I don't know how it exactly happened, but I remember he made a Instagram post about Floyd saying that he didn't get the same, you know, the same display in the media because he was black and McGregor was white. And then McGregor made a post about Mayweather saying something along those lines.
Yeah.
And then it kind of just went from there. And then, you know, he got asked in interviews if he would ever fight Floyd Mayweather, and he said he would. It just kind of went from there. So I think it's kind of the same type of thing. He just likes having those options. And just throwing them out there just for people to discuss and seeing what happens, because he's made a bunch of these. You know, recently just talked about a fight with Diego Sanchez.
That's true.
He's got the Dustin Poirier one. He made a post about
Pacquiao.
Pacquiao. Yep. He said he'd fight both the Diaz brothers in the same night. He's saying all sorts of things that just haven't really gone anywhere, and I don't think this one's any different.
Yeah. As much as I want to see that fight, I 100% agree with you. I think it's smoke and mirrors. I personally think that Dana's pissed that Conor wanted to try to do something without the UFC involved. So he was like, fuck this. Like, let me just try to shake things up. I mean, realistically, though, would you want to see Conor versus Dustin next if, like, you know, everything plays out, right? Khabib Gaethje happens. You know, let's just see. Chandler Ferguson happens, whatever. You think that fight kind of makes sense? Do you think that's one that Conor will take, or do you think, Dustin's too dangerous at this point to fight Conor again when they fought so young and Conor already took care of him pretty early?
Yeah, no, that's definitely a fight I think would be a good fight for the division.
Yeah.
And it just all depends on what Conor's plan is. If he wants to get back to the title, I think that's a good one for him. But it's so up in the air. He's talking about boxing. He's talking about fights at 170, all sorts of things. But if his plan is to get back to being the 155-pound champion, I don't think there's a better fight for him than the Dustin Poirier fight. Especially because I think it favors him stylistically. The other fights that could be made there would be Tony Ferguson, and I think I don't think that's a good fight for him.
I was gonna say,
even though Tony is pretty risky with his style. He puts himself in some bad positions. I think Conor is probably in more danger in that fight than Tony is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a good one. I don't think you should be looking at fights, and I don't think you would, anyone below Dustin, like a Dan Hooker or Oliveira or anything like that. I think like the best, the best fight for him at that division, without it being a championship fight, would be Dustin Poirier.
Yeah, completely agree with you. And obviously hope this one comes to fruition. I think obviously we are a couple weeks away from one of the best title fights I think we're going to see in a while is obviously Khabib Gaethje. I think depending on the winner of that, a lot of questions are going to get answered. Khabib came out and said, Dana's got something special for him. And I don't think if Khabib wins, he's going to accept a Conor rematch. He hates that the way Conor acts, with all the allegations and all this stuff out there about Conor. Like Khabib already said, this never going to happen again. But if Gaethje wins, I think we're going to see Conor Gaethje. So that's why maybe Conor's holding out to see who the winner is there. You got to think. I know Dana came out and said, Khabib Tony, he's willing to risk an asteroid strike to get that fight done for a sixth time. So, obviously, lightweight is so goddamn stacked, and all these guys deserve title shots. But there's just. And you got to love a guy like Khabib who's willing to take on just the next baddest dude. So I think Conor's going to wait to see the result of UFC 254 to make a decision. Because I think if Gaethje wins, he's getting that shot next. But who knows? Who knows with Dana? Who knows if Dana actually hates Conor right now? God only knows. He's the money guy in the UFC. So I don't really think that that's a possibility. But some exciting fights in the next couple weeks. UFC Fight Island 5 this weekend, Saturday night. It's going to be huge. The next coming weeks, let's just read off a couple of these main events. Saturday, October 16th. This is the one I cannot wait for. Brian Ortega taking on Korean Zombie. And then the week after that, we got UFC 254, absolutely stacked. I cannot wait to preview that one. The fights have just been so good this year. The UFC continues to put on unreal fights with no fans, and no one's even complaining about it. So Dana White, kudos to you. I know we say this every episode, but you guys are killing it. Can't wait for these next 3 fight cards. So cool. Thank you guys again. 50 episodes down, 50 million more to go. We're going to take this to the moon. Thank you guys for supporting us. Again, click that subscribe button so we can grow, so we can get you guys the biggest, the baddest content on planet Earth. We're going to take this shit up to the next level. Instagram's blowing up, so thank you guys for the follows. Twitter's blowing up. Thank you for the retweets, everything like that. Click the link below for some Flatline merch. Any of our sponsored ads, Trifecta, CBDMD, CBD Medic. Please click the link below. Support the boys so we can grow and we can blow the fuck up. Until next time, Flatline MMA. Peace.